Hello, everyone, and welcome back. My name is Chameleon, and in this series, I share unpopular opinions of mine on TVs, movies, games, etc. Now, today's one is fairly close to me. To put this in perspective, my son's name is Logan. Took a bit of convincing, but we got there. Now, with that, I believe, in my personal opinion, that X-Men Origins Wolverine is the best movie in the Wolverine trilogy. I'm not trying to tell you this is a fact, nor am I trying to change your mind. All I ask is that you hear me out. Liev Schreiber as Sabretooth. Liev does an extraordinary job as Sabretooth. He instilled fear into his victims and exhibited confidence with a blend of savagery that is required from this bestial character. He exuded a character that you really would not want to bump into in a dark alley, which unfortunately is something that will.i.am quickly learned. I mean, some might have been upset that Tyler Mane wasn't selected to reprise his role to maintain some continuity, but there was no mistake in recasting with Liev. Wolverine deserved a vicious, calculating villain to go toe-to-toe with, and Schreiber delivered. Something that the movie Logan could have used as opposed to a carbon copy of our hero. Seeing what Victor was in X-Men Origins only adds to what Tyler Mane brought to the screen. We now get a clear indication of what has transpired between X-Men Origins and the original X-Men movie, with Victor's obvious mental descent to become more animalistic. So at the end of the day, casting Liev Schreiber as Sabretooth was almost as good as casting Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Deepens Wolverine's character. Now look, I know this is a given because the title is named after him, for crying out loud, but X-Men Origins Wolverine presents the audience with a sympathetic character. Someone that we hope wins in the end. In Logan, we see someone who's clearly turned his back on the world and wants nothing more to do with it. If it weren't for the previous films that show us who Logan actually is, we really wouldn't care that he's dying. In Origins, we see a person that tries to stop the hurting of innocence. He holds true to his convictions so much to the point that he turns his back on his own brother. He ends up in a relationship and he works a blue-collar job as a logger. This is someone that knows right from wrong. We don't get that in Logan. Instead, we see someone who only cares about money for a boat. Not a road trip story. Strip away that noir feeling, wipe away the dust and grime, and what does Logan leave with you? At the end of the day, Logan is an escort mission. The most loathed type of mission by gamers all around the world. You know, that one quest where you're tasked with escorting something, usually a really slow character, from one point to another, and they have to arrive unharmed, otherwise you're gonna start again. In Logan, we start with Wolverine in his little hideaway in the middle of the Mexican desert, and he has to get Weapon 23 all the way to North Dakota so she can cross the border to Canada. And there's hiccups along the way. That's essentially the entire story. X-Men Origins, on the other hand, is a story of self-discovery, with Logan metaphorically walking that fine line between his more bestial nature and his humanity, with a much larger implication and impact on characters. The fight scenes. The fight scenes in X-Men Origins were masterfully choreographed. From Wolverine taking on a helicopter, to Gambit coming down from the air to slam his staff on the ground. The last battle with quote-unquote Deadpool on its own was a lot of fun to watch. And look, that's definitely not to say that Logan didn't have some phenomenal fight scenes too. Look, it is easy to be mad at X-Men Origins, and I understand where people's dislike of it comes from, but you have to give credit where credit is due, and the cast and crew put a lot of effort into their fight scenes. Sense of humor. Say what you want about the pacing or CGI of Origins, but with Ryan Reynolds' quips and banter, X-Men Origins Wolverine was objectively funnier than Logan. Look, as funny as it is to hear Patrick Stewart drop the F-bomb once or twice, the novelty of that particular kind of laugh wears off fast. With how barren Logan felt, it needed a little more of something. Just, I don't know, something to show a glimmer of hope in a landscape that has mutants nearly extinct. When one leaves the theater after watching Logan, it's hard not to feel the same despair you felt at the beginning of the film, with little joy in between. Gambit. This is a character a lot of fans have been waiting to see since Bryan Singer's first X-Men film, and even more when X-Men 2 had that little Easter egg of his name appear on a computer database. But X-Men Origins finally delivered. One can nitpick the accent or maybe even a couple of costume decisions, but his character, I believe, was spot on. Gambit was able to fit in nicely and didn't feel like he was shoehorned in. Then there was the phenomenal fight scene between him and Wolverine. Cars flying, explosions, walls being smashed in, absolutely glorious. Wolverine versus Sabretooth. Something or someone that was missing from Logan. And I mean an actual villain, to be exact, as opposed to an entire organization. We didn't need a rehash of the X-Men Origins Wolverine ending where Logan is fighting a genetically modified mutant with his DNA. We needed a classic villain that could go toe-to-toe with the hero, because Weapon 24 felt like a cheap stand-in for Creed. In Origins, we got Sabretooth, and their fights were epic and they were personal. Victor kept pushing and pushing to get Wolverine to cross a line he didn't want to cross, and that made their fights that much more thrilling for the audience. And the final fight in Logan wasn't personal enough. He just wanted to help some kids get across the Canadian border, and one of them happened to be his clone. Just as thrilling as it was to watch Wolverine and Sabretooth go toe-to-toe with one another, it was more satisfying to see them put their differences aside to fight a common enemy. When the two go back to back, the audience can see the brotherhood there. Wolverine even offers a hand to Victor when it's all over. You can see the history those two characters have in that one scene. It didn't need an R rating. Since the success of Deadpool, Fox has been more liberal about making R-rated comic book movies. Logan followed suit and did pretty well because of it. X-Men Origins Wolverine, however, didn't need to be R-rated to be dark at times. One specific scene that got particularly dark was during the fight between Victor and Wraith. While Wraith is teleporting and punching Victor, Victor grabs hold onto Wraith's spine, forcing him to stop teleporting. They exchange some choice words, which lets the audience know what Victor is holding onto before he rips out Wraith's spine. Sure, this scene could have been amplified had they been allowed to show the gore, but there is something to be said about not seeing this violence. This is to the filmmakers' credit that they were able to make someone cringe with the very thought that someone had their spine forcibly removed. Deadpool. Now, I have mixed feelings on this, and I agree with Origins in the sense that it is a character which is essentially a Deadpool of mutant abilities and things, yeah. But it's not Deadpool. Even before his appearance in X-Men Origins Wolverine, Ryan Reynolds was a fan favorite to play Deadpool on the big screen. Unfortunately, we all know how that turned out. And this is not in defense of what the movie did, but it reaffirmed that Ryan Reynolds was and is meant to play Deadpool. Thankfully, we got to see Ryan Reynolds in all his glory, with all of his witty banter, everything, at the beginning of X-Men Origins Wolverine. Overall, I really do believe that this is a criminally underrated movie. But the best part about everything I've just said is that it's all just my opinion. And at the end of the day, that's all it is. just my opinion. It's not fact. Now, regardless of whether your views or your opinions align with mine or completely go down the opposite track, awesome, I'd love to hear about it. Write something down in the comments below. Let me know what you think. I want to hear about it. I've got links in the description to my Discord and my Twitch, where I do a lot of things live. But ultimately, at the end of the day, as I mentioned, this is just my opinion. But more importantly, thank you for hearing me out.